Beginning with the all-important update on the so-called PERF recommendations, the Police Executive Research Forum. A lot of activity in that area, a lot of action. So we want to introduce our chief, Shelley Zimmerman and Sarah Creighton. And the technology. We're analog girls in a digital age. What can we say? And about how much time do you think you'll need? I know it's
about 30 minutes.
Okay, very good. The floor is yours, Chief.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, Chair Emerald, members of the committee. As you know, I'm Chief Shelley Zimmerman in the San Diego Police Department, and with me here today is Assistant Chief Sarah Creighton, who is the Assistant Chief over Employee Development and Training, and will be assisting in the presentation. Also here, as you see, are many of our Assistant Chiefs, both of our sworn and civilian commanding officers. On May 13, 2015, we did give our initial presentation to this committee, and again on July 29th of 2015, the same year, we gave an update on our progress in implementing the 40 recommendations. I will tell you is that a tremendous amount of hard work has gone into implementing all of the recommendations, and today's presentation will be an update regarding the 21 recommendations that had not been fully implemented since our last update. It's also extremely important that we recognize the demands that are put on our personnel. And if you have heard all of us say many times is that we get on average about 1.3 million calls into our communications center every year. And I am extremely proud of the work of our officers, professional civilian staff, and our volunteers do each and every day to make sure that San Diego remains one of the safest big cities in the entire United States. As we discussed in previous presentations, the Police Executive Research Forum, or PERF, report was called a Critical Response Technical Assessment Review. And the comprehensive review had 4 major focus areas: officer recruiting and the hiring process, supervision and training, accountability, which included early intervention systems, internal investigations and discipline, and community partnerships. We'll go ahead and start on recommendation number 4. This has been implemented since our last update. And as you know, that our department has a budget of $35,000 annually directed just at recruiting efforts. And we all recognize that diversity is very important, and our academy classes over the last several years have consistently been between 40 and 50% of minorities and or women. Also, since the last update, we have invited a group of local faith leaders to participate in an initiative intended to create a community-initiated, what we call a pathway to the profession, aimed at actively including churches and schools in preparing future candidates for a career in law enforcement.
Good afternoon. I have the next recommendation, and it is with regard to what we were calling supervisor training, annual supervisor training.
Is your microphone on, Chief?
It is. It is. Is this
there,
better?
just lean in. There you go. Thanks.
We were referring to our supervisors training as supervisor update. So the PERF report uses that terminology. We now call that same forum command training. So from this point forward, I'll be referring to it as command training. Essentially, the recommendation asks that we use our annual command training to emphasize the principles of procedural justice. And we have reported in the past that we intended to do that. Our last report went into a lot of specifics about what was going to be included in that. And since that last report, we have actually delivered that. I do want to make a comment about procedural justice by way of definition. It is essentially establishing legitimacy that is only earned through respect. That has to happen in order for community policing to work and operate. The overarching theme of our 14 command training sessions focused on the implementation of this philosophy of procedural justice under the area of community-oriented policing. It was well above and beyond our post mandates, 40 hours of training for every division, with the captain and their management team present to go through the training together. It included a lot of training on the procedural justice model, tactical de-escalation, non-biased based policing, dealing with the mentally ill population, body-worn camera best practices, and even beyond the command training, our supervisors had the opportunity to be part of our FTO refresher training on both emotional intelligence and procedural justice. And as mentioned during our previous report outs, approximately 13 hours was provided during our advanced officer training, where supervisors also attend, and that was the 2015 and 16 cycle of advanced officer training.
The next recommendation talked about our acting sergeants, and I will tell you is that 4 of our 9 patrol commands have transitioned their staffing matrix to a platoon system since the last reporting out. What this means is that the officers working at these divisions are supervised by their assigned sergeant on their scheduled work days, and the vast majority of the officers assigned of the remaining commands now work with their assigned sergeant on the majority of their scheduled work days.
And the next recommendation has to do with training on accountability and the application of principles of equity and fairness for first-line supervisors. I started talking about this in the last 2 presentations. That training has actually been completed. It occurred over about a year's time, starting in the summer of 2014. It was provided by our human resources manager and our department's legal advisors. It dealt specifically with accountability, consistency, in evaluations and discipline. It was essentially a 5-class series, 2 hours each, that totaled about 10 hours. In addition to that, during our command training, the captains facilitated discussions with their management teams and discussed consistency, procedural justice, community policing, and evaluations in the division and on a more global level. This was a 4-hour facilitated discussion. Those discussions are ongoing during monthly supervisors training, so that is something that we will continue to do as we need to. The next recommendation, the department should identify ways to measure whether personnel are applying the principles of community policing and procedural justice in carrying out their duties. So I want to go directly to the second recommendation first, because it directly speaks to measurement. In the first 3 quarters of fiscal year 2016, the 9 patrol commands completed 435 random customer survey satisfactions, and on a rating scale between 1 and 5, with 5 being the highest, the department achieved an average score of 4.61 from these participants. That's pretty significant, and that speaks volumes about the way I think that our officers are performing out there. What gets measured gets done, and we're measuring it on a regular basis. The second thing, which is in addition to enhance our ability to hold accountable for that behavior, is that with our recent promotional process, we asked for the candidates to demonstrate their ability and their practical experience in applying procedural justice and community policing. You had to be successful at that and be knowledgeable about it in order to be successful through the promotional process. All of the source material that you needed to read in order to be successful was specific to procedural justice, PERF documentations, crucial conversations, which is really emotional intelligence. So we are, in every possible way that we can, doing our best to really reinforce that philosophy and that mindset in our officers. Recommendation number 16. We need a personnel development strategy to develop and retain existing personnel. Our evaluation system could be supplemented through the use of individual development plans and ongoing opportunities for mentoring and coaching. Again, during command training and our human resources update, we reemphasize the use of an existing document, the supplemental performance report. We also use now on a regular basis the career enhancement plan, which is more about mentoring and having specific discussions with subordinates about ways in which they can enhance their possibility to be promoted and be on a career path. And in addition to that, back in August of 2014, the department created its first leadership development unit, which is under the direction of a lieutenant and staffed with 2 sergeants who are very actively looking at putting the department on its path towards succession planning and doing the best we can to develop our workforce. Number 17, the leaders may want to further develop the department's directives to emphasize the roles and responsibilities of supervisors. Performance evaluations and review of supervisors should include these factors and should assess the supervisor's ability to connect with and develop and lead his or her subordinates. Again, command training in 2014 started off with providing captains the opportunity to work with their management teams where they were able to clearly establish the roles of their management team. In addition, we very specifically discussed those issues in Command Training 2015, and that forum allows for, again, the division under the direction of the captain to have discussions with their own work groups. Our sergeant and lieutenant's performance evaluation forums have very specific performance evaluations and anchors that are related to things that are important around these issues, including interpersonal skills, both internally and externally, so the way we deal with the community as well, leadership, subordinate mentoring, career development, and teamwork. So we're satisfied that the forums that do exist currently within the city allow for us to capture exactly what we need to with specific direction by our captains and lieutenants about the things that they're individually looking for at their divisions.
The following next 7 recommendations are going to be 19 through 25. Now, they all pertain to our early identification and intervention system. I'll tell you that a data-based EIS system is an extremely important tool and a resource. And as you heard at our last presentation, although we had an EIS system, we recognized that it was not as effective as it needed to be. And we took a comprehensive approach how we can implement a system utilizing all of these recommendations. Our department conducted research of other police agencies. We spoke with other police chiefs and experts that utilized EIS systems in order to locate best practices. On April 22nd of 2016, our department implemented the IA Pro software, which included the conversion of the existing internal affairs database and the creation of an interface of the department's human resources employee database. IA Pro, what they call the Blue Team, is an integral part of the new EIS structured system. The IA Pro EIS early warning system consists of a robust analytical tools which evaluates every department employee and their performance as compared to their peers. The EIS system contains thresholds determined by the department's best practices. The system also allows for easy identification, flexible intervention, and a thorough reporting and documentation. Frontline personnel will receive training on the new Blue Team program via a structured rollout. The Blue Team training is scheduled to begin in the early part of August, so just another month or so from now. Now, the following slides, again, will specifically discuss the update regarding each of the 7 EIS recommendations. Now, in this recommendation, they talked about that we need to fully implement all of the protocols that were outlined in the technical assistance guide, enhancing cultures of integrity, and building law enforcement early intervention systems, published by the COPS Office in 2011, and other best practices. Our department is going to the EIS, it will be a structured system, and it is a structured system that identifies and will assist supervisors in managing the behaviors that could result in performance-related problems by individual employees. And the department has adopted the protocols as applicable, outlined in the Enhancing Culture of Integrity, Building Law Enforcement Early Intervention System Guide. And the intent, again, of the system is to provide non-disciplinary intervention, guidance, and resources whenever possible, also and/or to assist employees with professional development in order to provide the highest level of service and satisfaction to our public who we proudly serve. Now, this next recommendation, they talked about that lieutenants should receive notifications from that EIS system administrator on officers in their chain of command, and in cases when the first line supervision is lacking, the lieutenant in charge must step in to provide the adequate supervision. And again, this system now is going to allow us, the lieutenant managers are going to receive the notifications from the administrator. They will be able to review all of the employees for whom they are responsible in the EIS system, and they'll be able to do this on a monthly basis. Also, when necessary, if the lieutenant or managers, they will conduct the appropriate follow-up with the department employees, and they will also ensure that their sergeant and supervisor is conducting his or her own monthly inspections, and that also the acting sergeants and supervisors will only have access to their own personnel data. This next recommendation talked about that we should incorporate into our EIS system the following additional indicators: unsatisfactory performance evaluation, civil litigation, canine bites, tardiness, and also positive indicators into the department's EIS system, and include them in an agency's written policy. Also, that the policy should provide procedures on how and when supervisors are to enter this information into the EIS system. If additional indicators cannot be automated or automatically entered into the system, and we should implement a nuanced system for when various indicators trigger an alert. And this system is going to allow us to do this. And so, again, the updated and included all the above indicators that were in the recommendations are going to be included in this. And then also, yes, there is a assigned aggregate thresholds that will trigger an EIS alert in that recommendation. So all of that will be fully implemented. This next recommendation, again, continuing on with the EIS system, is that automate all necessary department systems with the agency's EIS system, and determine if the system can automatically, again, notify the EIS administrator and the commander, lieutenant, or sergeant of any officers that are under their supervision. And yes, the system will allow us to do that the early identification and intervention system has implemented an automatic alert process to identify and evaluate the behavior of department employees who have met the criteria for an early intervention assessment. And then, yes, the EIS administrator will review the alerts to determine if an employee has surpassed that threshold and a proper alert has been triggered. And then there also is checks and balances in place to confirm appropriate notifications are made to the employee's chain of command. Continuing on with the EIS recommendations, that we should develop a formalized policy regarding the process for EIS interventions so that all interventions are consistently documented. And then, yes, the procedure has been written and it is currently being reviewed and finalized. And also the procedure does outline the intervention process and will assist with assuring all interventions are thoroughly and consistently documented and then closed out appropriately. This next one is that we should consider moving the policy required supervisor review of the EIS from a quarterly basis to a monthly basis, and any time a supervisor is assigned a new employee. And yes, this is exactly what we're going to do, is that the supervisor or sergeant will review all of the employees for whom they are responsible in the EIS system on a monthly basis, and then they will conduct an EIS review upon receiving a new employee under their new supervision. And then again, when necessary, the sergeant or supervisor will conduct the appropriate follow-up with the employees as stated in the EIS procedure. This next one talks about that lieutenants should conduct these monthly EIS reviews with acting sergeants regarding officers' performance. And yes, the lieutenant or the manager, if it's a civilian, will conduct the review of any department employee being supervised by an acting sergeant or an acting supervisor and conduct any appropriate follow-up. This next one talks, and those were the ones that were talked about for the EIS. This next recommendation talks about the Citizens Review Board, that we should provide the Citizens Review Board with routine updates on the status of complaints received from the board, as well as a way for the Citizens Review Board to track the status of these complaints. And this has been implemented. The Internal Affairs Unit has developed an Excel-based tracking system for the Citizens Review Board to assign a tracking number, log, route, and track the status of complaints made to the Citizens Review Board and route it to the Internal Affairs Unit. The tracking system log complaint letters to the CRB by tracking number and will route and record the disposition of the complaints received by the CRB, which are then routed to the Internal Affairs Unit. And then we tested the Excel-based tracking system by the SharePoint, and it was completed back in July of 2015. This next recommendation talks about that if the commanding officer, or should the commanding officer want to go outside the matrix to discipline an officer, that they should outline and describe the decision in a memo that must be approved and signed by the assistant chief in the chain of command prior to the discipline, and all formal, this has been implemented, all formal discipline requires the written approval of an assistant chief prior to the discipline being administered, and the department's discipline manual has been updated to reflect this change in protocol. This next recommendation that we should work, we talk a lot about community policing to rebuild the trust with the community, building on its past reputation of a leader in problem-oriented policing. We should re-engineer its approach to working with the community, focusing on strategies that use the principles of community policing and procedural justice. And you have heard us say many times that public safety is a shared responsibility between our police officers, professional civilian staff, volunteers, and the community who we so proudly serve. The department has added 9 additional community relations officers, in addition another one to our gang prevention unit also, and we now have a community relation officer in every single service area. This has doubled our ability to reach out to community groups and attend community meetings, and as outlined in our quarterly community policing report, which I know you all receive now, and it's available on our department's website. We attend on average more than 1,100 community events per quarter. And we accomplish our community policing strategy in a variety of ways, but I think most, not all, but most can be put into 4 categories: community partnerships, community involvement, community outreach, and community givebacks.
And the next one is mine. The police department should consider a program that helps department officials to confront unconscious biases, such as fair and impartial policing, to address the concerns of biased policing raised by some community members. And we've taken the best from everyone else and then created some of our own. I mentioned, and you saw in our last 2 reports, that our advanced officer training for the 2015-16 cycle included about 13 hours directly related to this. We also increased our phase training of new police officers by about 6 weeks to include an observation phase, a community engagement phase, a community bus tour, crisis response training. So we're adding a significant amount of training to our new officers. The thing that's most exciting to me is this next one. It is a department built with a police psychologist, 2-day effective interactions class. We have presented it now twice, once in November 2015. The second serving was in January of 2016. We're going to be doing it again in July, and this training occurs at the conclusion of the officers' phase training and sort of serves as an inoculation for them when they get out on their own, just to bring back in all of the very positive things about what that person brought to the occupation in the interest of being empathetic and caring for the men and women that they serve in the community. The class goes to all brand new officers and will continue doing that. And it basically provides a foundation for understanding unconscious bias and how it can and does interfere with our ability to effectively work with people. It's essentially the psychology of bias, if you will. And it's an opportunity to learn through role play and non-didactic learning methods how to change the lenses through which we see things. As simply as that. It includes some unscripted one-on-one interactions with community member volunteers. This next iteration of it is going to include community members as role players and actual scenarios to make it even more real. It includes a review of the post dimensions, psychological dimensions that we use to determine if somebody's suitable to be a police officer. And then we take those dimensions and we go and do autopsies of men and women who have been unsuccessful in our organization and who we saw in the national news. And we talk about what happened specifically to that individual who once met those dimensions and no longer does, and how you need to be proactive as a police officer in your own well-being to tend to those things that might affect your ability to cope with parts of the occupation. It's very exciting. Our next iteration is going to be for more senior officers. We have very recently applied with PERF for an NIJ grant from the COPS office to do a case study of San Diego PD's creation. So I'm very optimistic that we're going to be able to come up with something that hopefully is generalizable to the rest of the nation.
This recommendation talks about that we should consider neighborhood or beat level customer satisfaction surveys. Survey results should inform patrol priorities for each neighborhood. Surveys might be conducted on a regular schedule or continuously through a system. And as you heard us talk about in some of those other recommendations, is that we continue to gather information on customer satisfaction surveys through monthly random surveys conducted by the service area lieutenants. And then also, as you know, the results of the 2015 citywide resident satisfaction survey, which included questions related to police services, which were released on March the 2nd, 2016. And then also, each patrol captain has also established a captain's advisory board. The captain meets regularly with their respective boards, which are made up of community leaders from their areas of responsibility.
And the next one is that we should develop tailored cultural education involving community leaders and representatives to be delivered during lineup training. We talked about two that were being developed. The first was with the LGBT community, and they have come in and offered a number of presentations at our lineups. We also had the opportunity to co-develop some training with the Muslim community on the Muslim culture. Those have yet to be delivered to our lineups. And most recently, we had an offer from Project Innocence to come in, and although lineup itself was not the proper forum for those presentations, they've been invited to participate in the bus tours with our new officers to get an audience in that forum.
And then this one, recommendation number 40, the last of the recommendations, that we should update our website to make sure the goals, values, and mission of the department are on there. And our website has been updated and includes the vision, values, and mission of the police department. And then, as you know, we continue to work with the city as it is developing and updating the department's websites, and all websites are being updated across the city. So in conclusion, as you saw, that 33 of the 40 PERF recommendations are now completely implemented. The 7 remaining recommendations are all related to our EIS system. And as you just heard, training on our IA Pro EIS system begins in August, and we anticipate by the end of the year it will be fully implemented. This concludes our report, and we would be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. I don't want to put anybody on the spot, but is there a new mission statement for PD?
We have revised it. It's to maintain peace and order by providing the highest quality police services. The vision, a police department whose employees feel valued, works together in community partnerships to be a model of excellence in policing, and fosters the highest level of public trust and safety. And we have numerous goals that are under that.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it. Let's go to a public comment. Martha Welch. And Ms. Welch, you have 2 minutes.
Martha Welch, good afternoon again. I'm in favor of this kind of program if it would go through. I don't believe all this stuff because Laurie Sandrum, I know her, and I know it's going to cavity. I know it's going to cavity. Community colleges do that. She teaches them. Now the budget says 1,000. The budget's $1 million for academy. Supposed to be 4 of them. That's why I don't believe all this stuff, because I know what's going on. Laurie Sandrum, I know her, and she teaches them, and I know what's going on. It's in the computer. It's over there. So where are you doing it? Where are you doing it? Where do you teach these people? Because you don't have a place for academy. Where do you where these classes say good, but where are you going to teach them? The community college again? If you want respect, you got to have lies. Don't do that. Honest, that's what you get respect with that. But I know it's community college does academy in this city, because I know the person who does it, and that's why I don't believe this stuff. Because where are you going to do it? If the academies are there as the same place, it looks good, but I don't think that's what you like. Looking good. That's your motto.
Thank you very much, Ms. Welch. Say, I'd like to hear from Charmaine Mosley. I see you're in the audience, the Executive Director of our Citizens Review Board. And much mention made of CRB today, and of course in the the Charter Review Committee, much discussion about it as well. But this has been a very impressive report of all of the points made by PERF being implemented or in the process of implementation. Over the course of the last year since our initial report, and since you've joined the city, have you seen any differences in the numbers or types of complaints that have been filed with the CRB?
Well, right now, we came out with the annual fiscal year 2015 annual report. So it looks like the number of complaints is going down, and that could be an effect to the body cameras. So also the electronic complaint filing system, which was put in place a couple of weeks ago, we've seen more people filing that way right now.
Okay. Has the nature of complaints changed? Because ultimately, we're building trust with the community. We're making sure that our policing is right on, and that there's good communication with people in the community. And I guess that the proof is in the pudding. You know.
Yes. Well, right now I'm putting together the fiscal year 2016 report, so
Okay.
it's too soon to, make any type of conclusions for that. But the Community Outreach Committee has been out and meeting everyone in the community and listening to feedback, which is very important to hear, what people have to say, and if they do have a complaint, to encourage them to file one, because if we don't know what's happening, it's hard to be able to, kind of figure things out. So that's what we've been up to right
And if
now.
we're on the right track here.
Yes.
Yeah. When will that report be ready? Do you know?
The fiscal year is over June 30th, so shortly after that.
Okay. Thank you so much, and we'll
Yes.
look forward to that report later on this summer or this fall.
Yes.
Thanks so
Thank
very
you.
much. Appreciate that. Let's go now to members of our committee, starting with Ms. Cole.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Chief, for this report. Ms. Mosley, could you come back up real quick? Just wanted to talk about the recommendation number 28, where the San Diego Police Department will provide the Citizens Review Board or the Community Review Board with routine updates on the status. I don't know if that's been implemented, but what do you think about that? And
Yes, we do
is that
have
enough?
We do have SharePoint, and the information is being inputted into SharePoint, so we are able to get the status of those CRB complaints that's actually coming into the system.
And that is helping. That is
Yes.
an improvement. Fabulous. Okay, good. Chief, I like the CRB updates and the implementation of that. That's really important to me, so thank you for doing that. Thank you, Ms. Mosley.
Yes.
Again, 33 of 40, impressive, great accomplishment. And, I know, Chief, in my district, for sure, I know that you've been in my district, your officers been in my district, your captains, everybody's been in my district. You guys do recruitment, meeting with community members, church leaders, more so than ever before, and truly that is appreciated. Matter of fact, my pastors brag about how they can get directly to you, and they don't have to go through me anymore. They can just go through you, and that's a good thing. So I appreciate that. You're been at a Better Block event in our district, which really helps the relationship between the community and the officers. I appreciate that. On marches, on everything at the different churches, you're there when there's events. It's making a difference. The relationship is building. I see it. I hear it. And it's making a difference, and I appreciate that. And you've been in my community to discuss the new officer-involved shooting policies. And I want to say thank you because that's important in my district. And what stood out to me in this report was the amount of training you've instituted in the department. Commendable. The unbiased training, I think we even had that at Tubman Chavez, if that was the one, and then I think I attended that. Thank you for that. And again, your one-on-one interactions with the community members is making a difference. Building relationships is what we're trying to do, and that's what you're doing. Couple of things. With regard to recommendation number 4, you mentioned an initiative called Pathway to the Profession, and that you're getting with churches. Like we have 1,000 churches, in my community. Bless your heart that you're doing that. Now, how many leaders have been in the program, or have you recruited folks to
We
be
have
in this
spoken
program?
to a few of them, and it's something that we're going to continue to do, and we believe that again to offer opportunities, and that's again working with the community to make sure that they offer opportunities to our young leaders, up and coming leaders, to make sure that hey, there's a job waiting for you. Here's the pathway to the profession. We want our police department to be reflective of the community. Our community needs to help us to do that.
Absolutely correct. Thank you. And you mentioned jobs. We talked a week or so ago about jobs because summer is coming. When summer comes, things happen. And we need to get our youth and people involved in jobs and programs. And you mentioned some of the things that you might be doing. And I also talked with the Gang Commission, Ricky Lasser, to make sure that they're implementing programs and getting jobs ready for our youth. Can you elaborate on that?
Yes, we just had a meeting just yesterday, again, speaking with Pastor Lassiter, Pastor Bowser, many other community members to make sure that we do everything that we possibly can to, especially as you know this summer, when school is out, to make sure that our youth make good decisions.
Fabulous. Thank you for that. And something that you didn't touch on, but I just wanted to touch on, the dispatchers. I believe you told me that the call level was down to 9 seconds now.
That is correct, yeah.
Come on, talk to me, okay?
Yes, it was, get a weekly report, and last week it was average time for answering 911 calls with 9 seconds.
Fabulous. And I know that report yesterday, there were 300 and something positions. There were 20. Tell me that number again.
Yeah, we have more than 20 vacancies for dispatchers. We're actively hiring. We have many dozens that are in the background process, several that have we should be able to start within the next couple weeks, and we anticipate by the end of the year that they will be filled.
I think that's all I have. Besides one thing, I just want to say on record, thank you for closing the illegal dispensary, 42nd and Market. Yes. Great job. Great job.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, Ms. Cole and my constituents both are very grateful for that because they had no business doing business where they were. Thanks so much. On to Mr. Cate.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Chief, for the presentation. And I want to echo the comments by Ms. Cole, and just seeing officers out in the community has been fantastic. I think all the members of my communities are very receptive and very encouraged. I know we have our first coffee coming up in a couple of weeks at our brand new Starbucks in Mira Mesa that I'm excited to attend and take a listen. You mentioned something about, and I haven't heard this before, but the bus tours? Can you talk about, I have not heard about that before.
It's part of our agency-specific training that we do once the officers graduate from the academy. We get our own group of San Diego PD, and we want to impart some of who we are as an agency and really focus on our priorities. And so there is a day where we get a bus or two, depending on the size of the class, and we invite members from the community who want time with the recruits to come on the bus. And we've had the Compassion Project there before. We stop at a number of different locations throughout the community, rehab facilities, the House of Metamorphosis, a variety of different places. Detox is one of them. Just a variety of different places that they are going to see in the capacity as a police officer, but we want them to be there in a uniform as a human being, getting face-to-face interaction, human to human, hearing what the pain behind the face of that segment of the society that they're going to be working closely with. So it changes from academy group to academy group who we stop and see. We want to be fair to everybody. So if you can't get time with the officers to stop at your particular location, then come on the bus, and there's time in between where we're going to get a chance to talk one-on-one.
Okay. That's fantastic. I've not heard about that, so that's good to know now in the back of my mind. For recommendation number 12 and the platoon system, you said there was 4 of the 9
Correct.
divisions.
Correct.
Is there a timeline to do the remaining 5? Or how's that?
That's all dependent on our staffing.
Yeah. Okay.
As we're able
Yeah.
to get more staffing, we'll be able to do that at everyone.
Okay.
But for the commands now, but all the other ones, the majority of the officers now, even with the other ones, work most days now with their assigned sergeant.
Okay, perfect. And then my last question, maybe Stephen, I appreciate the time I've had to kind of learn more about the recruiting process, what goes into that, some of the different tactics that are used, and very much appreciated of learning more about that. I know money is always an issue and tight and what to do with. I just want to record, I would like to give more money to that efforts and hopefully expand those opportunities. I appreciate what your officers do with the budget and being very deliberate in the mechanisms of which they use to recruit folks and the tactics that are used. So I appreciate all that. But I'm just going to say on record that I'm going to try to hopefully get more dollars to those efforts. So, but I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Mr. Gloria.
Thank you, Ms. Emerald. And Chief, before I get into questions, I just wanted to publicly, once again, thank you for the great work in the response days after the massacre in Orlando. I think it's worth my colleagues hearing that I think Chief and I were on the phone very early on Sunday morning. It's because she was all on top of it, and keeping myself and many other community members posted. That certainly, I think, is reflective of what we'd hope the entire department does, and this report, I think, paints a picture that is the culture that's being developed. But I think it certainly went a long way to calm down a lot of my constituents, I think all of our constituents, but certainly a lot of my constituents for which this hit home, and appreciate that effort. And I think it was certainly timely with some of the issues that are raised in here. So thank you very, very much for that. Just a number of questions from the report itself. I'll just go through the slides as we go. With under recommendation number 4, with regard to the pathway to the profession, are those organizations, are they funded or are they receiving money for participation in this?
No.
Okay.
No.
And why is it limited to churches? Is it church schools or
it's not limited to churches. That was where we started. What we want to do is develop it to go citywide to everyone to talk about giving those leadership opportunities to, we already kind of know early on, and the community leaders know who are going to be, probably great police officers. And so let's give them an opportunity to have those leadership, to get in the jobs early on. And we come talk with them also and to, talk about the profession. It's really just starting to get going. It's but just another way for us to go out and recruit. Not going to solve it, let's say, tomorrow with this, but we're looking at the future police officers years from now.
And it may be about 72 hours too late, but is $35,000 enough for recruitment?
Well, part of the additional money that's in the budget and negotiations with the Police Officers Association, that's also things that are going to be discussed.
Okay. Then going on to number 12, 4 of the 9 patrol commands have been transitioned to the platoon system. Is it the intention to convert all 9 to platoon?
Yes.
When will that be done?
As soon as our staffing, we're able to get up to our budgeted staffing, we'll be able to do that.
Okay, so I think we all have concerns whether or not that's going to be possible with the challenges that we have. Is that this fiscal year thing, or is that really going to be just based upon whether or not we can retain enough and recruit enough?
Well, we've been able to do it at 4 of our commands.
Right.
And the other commands, it's most of the days now. Instead of before, it was really only maybe 1 day.
Okay.
Now we're looking at most commands now have at least 3 of the 4 days that they have with their sergeant. So again, that will depend on staffing, be able to as we increase our staffing, do promotions, we'll be able to achieve that. I can't give you a timeline. Obviously, the more we recruit is great. The more we retain, the quicker we're able to do all of that, the more timely we'll be able to do that at all 9 patrol commands.
And that's what you meant by based on current staffing.
Correct.
On the slide 12. And then the second bullet, the vast majority of officers have that. What does that mean? Is that 50%, 60%?
Well, as I said, I can't tell you the percentage, but the majority of them, vast majority of them now work at least 3 days or so with their sergeant. Whereas when we had given reports before, we had talked about, maybe only 1 of that you worked with your sergeant, assigned sergeant, maybe even 1 day. Now we're talking about the vast majority work most of the days with their sergeant. Maybe not all 4 days like the other commands, but we've been able to do that at least the vast majority of them.
just as I'm trying to, and it's difficult to keep up with some of the stuff that's in the report, not because you're not trying hard, but there's a lot going on here, right? So the vast majority, because measured by 2 to 3 days a week, they have access to their sergeant, and
So let's say you had a squad of 7 officers. Now,
Okay.
you might have 4 that work all 4 days with you. You might have a couple that work 3 days with you. Maybe you have one that works 2 days with you. So the majority of the ones that aren't fully implemented are working most of the days with their assigned sergeant.
okay, that helps me understand it better. So it's not a situation of any officers not having direct interaction with the sergeant.
Oh, no, all the officers have,
Their
interaction
sergeant or an acting sergeant?
with theirs. Well, we still have acting
So-
sergeants out there. No, we still do have acting sergeants. We just went through the promotional process, and so we'll, be doing promotions, either I'd say by the end of the summer or early fall, we'll be doing it. And so we just went through that process.
Okay. And then under recommendation 14, actually, I think Sarah covered some of that and understand that the HR training, that was a 4-hour discussion, I think I have here in my notes.
Well, there are 2 parts to the HR training. We had our HR manager and our legal advisors do a series of classes that totaled about 10 hours. And in addition to that, the most recent command training, which was 2015, so last summer, was 4 hours specific to each division. So the captain with their lieutenants and sergeants discussed very specifically consistency within their own divisions.
So, and you had me off at the pass. So command training means captain and lieutenants.
Yeah, that's what used to be referred to as supervisor's update.
Got it. Okay. I agree that the Yelp review, if you will, the 4.61 is impressive. And I was trying to understand it's a later in the slide, but the way that it was described, like 2 per beat per month where did that slide go? I was trying to understand what that whole number is for gosh. Do you know what I'm referring to? Okay, here we go. 2 per watch per service area per month.
Yes, that's that.
So there's 3 watches, right?
Yes.
We can
Look at
have
me, look what I've learned.
We can have Chief Jarvis come up.
Sure.
Who's the assistant chief over patrol operations to explain that?
I always feel
He's
safe
better
when
at
Jarvis
math
is
than
around.
us.
Yeah. I'm just trying to understand how many service area, so that's Western, Central.
Well, you take Western, there's several service areas within one, so.
Okay. Help me out.
Hi.
How many are we talking about? The random service.
Well, there's 2 per watch per service area per month. So each division has, Northwestern is the only one with 1 service area. Mid-City has 3. Everybody else has 2. So the lieutenant for that particular service area would at random pick 2 contacts per watch, contact that citizen, and then read the survey to them, record the results.
Okay, so you have one service area that's 1 that has 3, and the rest all have 2. So how many service areas are there 2s?
18.
18. So you did the math for me. Thank you. So 18 times 2 times 12. Okay, that gives you a sense of. I'll let the IBA tell me how statistically significant, but I still think the number overall is pretty darn good. Thank you.
Welcome.
I
Can I
appreciate
ask one other question for you?
Yeah,
on
of
the
course.
previous question you had, in regards to the platoon system.
Yeah.
Right now, in patrol, in the 5 divisions who do not have the platoon system, they have 4 days a week with their sergeant. The other 5, just under 80%, it was like 79.4% of those officers work with their sergeant 3 days a week.
Okay.
I'm sorry, work with their sergeant 4 days a week. So the remainder work 3 days a week. But we don't have any circumstances anymore where officers are working 1 or 2 days a week with their sergeant like we did prior to the PERF report. So
Got it.
we're doing much, much better in that regard.
That's really helpful. Thank you.
Welcome.
Very much. And then I think the rest, Chief, you talked about the EIS or the IA Pro. That's one and the same thing. Is that right?
Correct, yes.
The deployed in early August, fully operational by the end of the year.
Yeah, we believe
Into
so.
the calendar
We're
year.
in, again, negotiations with the employee unions, with the
Okay.
MEA and then also POA. But we're well into that. We believe that everybody will have received training on it and how to use that by the end of the year,
Okay. Into the calendar year.
calendar year.
And then almost done, I think. Oh, the EIS procedure. is currently being reviewed and finalized. Who is reviewing that? That's POA?
It would be MEA, POA, but also legal.
Also legal? Okay. And nearly there. There's a lot of good stuff here. The CRB, with regard to the Excel spreadsheet, how is that how is that shared with the CRB?
With SharePoint, with through
email?
a computer system.
Okay.
Computer-based
And
system.
how is that real time, or is that on a regular basis?
It's all the time. Yeah,
It's also they can-
they could just log in and get it at any time.
is-
It's updated. Yes.
And is that staff or is that CRB members?
What
Ms.
that's the
Mosley?
CRB
Yeah.
on how they do it.
It's staff
Okay, so you do that and then that's
in real time.
And is that given directly to CRB members, or do they request it from you, or how does that work?
No, they don't request it from me. It's for when complainants have questions about the status of their complaints.
Okay.
They can call in and we can just go into the computer and get that information for them right now.
Is that something that should be shared regularly with CRB members?
If they ask for it,
Do they know to ask for it?
they know it exists.
Okay.
No one has asked for information out of it. We use it for statistical purposes as well, for the
That's shared-
reports.
Those statistics are
Mhm.
shared with?
Yes, with
board
everyone.
members?
Yes,
Okay. Thank you.
you're welcome.
Love the CROs, and just reiterating, I know probably nobody more than Ms. Cole likes her CROs. I know they're valuable too, and I appreciate seeing 9. That's fantastic. And the speak question was answered. Oh, and then the last thing is on, what is that, recommendation 38, the LGBT community and the Muslim community. I think for obvious reasons, those are probably good ones to prioritize. Who and what is next? What are the other outreaches? I think you mentioned some.
Project Innocence
Project
had some
Innocence.
high school students. It's really an inappropriate forum in lineups and really a very difficult thing to do.
Sure.
But any community group can, approach and ask for the opportunity, and we'll weigh the importance in the proper forum. It may not be through a lineup. It may be through agency-specific training for new officers. It really depends on the training and the necessity to get it out, and really who our audience is.
And so if I was a community member or a community group that was interested in doing that, who do they contact?
They can contact any one of the chiefs.
Okay.
I mean, I think that's probably, or their CRO or captain. I mean, really anyone.
Okay, fantastic. Well, thank you for the time, Ms. Emerald. I think, obviously this was a very important report. I think the way the council provides oversight with regard to it is important for ongoing good relations, goodwill, both down the food chain, up the food chain. So appreciate the time on this and the continued vigilance on the report. Thank you to the department. Last thing, does the IBA have any comments on this, or does the POA, I don't know if there's a representative here, but certainly provide opportunities as folks are also watching this for us.
No, we don't have any comments at this time.
Tom, you good? Okay, yeah, I see you're.
Here's Councilman Cates, Community Relations Officer.
Oh, lucky you. So does that mean you get to go to the brand new Starbucks in Mira Mesa?
POA stuff and CRO.
It's very good. He has convoy, so he doesn't get to see the new Starbucks in Mira Mesa. Then, oh wow, so it's fancy living in D6. Still the best council district in San Diego, right here. But thank you to the department for a thorough report and for staying on top of this. Look forward to additional information and the rollout of IA Pro. And so we'll stay tuned. And
Yeah.
again, Chief, thanks for all the great work this weekend.
And since we, Mr. Gloria ended on the IA Pro, or Team Blue, right? For those of us who are challenged with, trying to remember all those numbers. You say that acting sergeant supervisors will only have access to their own personal data. Why is that?
Yeah, that has to go again when we talk about the sensitive nature of things that go in there. So the acting sergeants, they have not, as we say, been promoted full-time to that position. When promotions are made, they would have to, if they're not the one promoted, they would have to go back to their squad, and then they would have information potentially on one of their peers. So it has to do, again, with best practices on how to implement this.
And is that in any way, is there oversight legally or through human resources, POA,
We look at
in
all this,
establishing this policy?
and I'd like to bring up Sergeant Dan Meyer, who is the administrator of our EIIS system.
There he is.
everyone.
Gee, you look so young and rested. Give you 6 months.
After this
Go
week, I
ahead.
don't feel so well. So with regard to that, the implementation of that portion is with regard to that supervisor being in an acting status, and when they are relieved of the acting status, going back to their squad and having information on their peers and no longer being in that supervisory role. So the PERF recommendation was for us to utilize the next level in supervision to accomplish that task. So if a acting sergeant is acting sergeant, the lieutenant, who is the next level supervisor, will take care of that inspection during that time.
Okay, and is under any circumstances would you have an acting sergeant and an acting lieutenant, so you'd have to take it even
There have been
further?
times when that has occurred, and again, next level supervisor. So that would be a captain in that case.
But with the promotions, and they seem to be coming fast and furious, soon we won't have too many acting officers, right? Or
Well, that's our
command
goal.
staff?
That's our goal.
Okay, terrific. Another question for you on recommendation 21 with regard to numbers and types of alerts. Are you looking for a certain type of alert that comes into the EIIS system to send up a red flag, or is it the type of complaint that comes in, or both?
So each one of the indicators that we've identified through PERF and the research that we've done have their own set alert. So none of them really relate to each other. We, as a department and best practices, select the alert appropriate for every given category. So for instance, if you take use of force, once we go through the process of vetting those alerts and thresholds with our labor unions and our legal department, we will set whatever best practice alert associates to that category. And when a given employee is an outlier in that category and reaches that threshold level, it'll alert in the system and notify me in the unit that a intervention may be necessary. So it's specific to the specific indicator category that we're looking at. So they don't really relate to each other. Every single one is custom to that given category.
But if you see types of alerts that have to do with unnecessary use of force or versus, somebody mouthing off to a citizen allegedly, does one weigh heavier than the other?
I would say no. I think that we take them all seriously, and we will choose an intervention process that is appropriate to that given category and the behavior we're seeing, but all of them are taken just as seriously as any of the others.
And then again, the command staff has an opportunity to go in and take a look at these. And does that influence perhaps the next steps with training or intervention at all with the officer to find out what's going on?
Absolutely. The intervention itself is very flexible depending on the issue that's identified and the employee themselves. So a report will be generated in my unit. It'll be filtered down to the command staff and eventually to that officer sergeant. And they, based upon that employee and the identified issue, after meeting with them, performing that intervention, will curtail a intervention program specific to that employee and the issue that's identified. So that may include training, wellness, our focused psychological services. There's all sorts of resources that will be offered, but it'll be specific to that issue that's identified.
And then with regard to best practices, is that set by this department, or is that something that's already programmed into EIIS?
So best practices has been taken from quite a few things. Other agencies that have implemented IAPRO, the research we did via the Department of Justice, the COPS office, which sets forth federal guidelines with regard to early warning systems, and really a committee that we brought together from all facets of our department in giving recommendations. And that committee was selected of people from all across our department. So we took everything into account in order to go ahead.
But there are uniform best practices that every department is expected to follow.
Absolutely, and it's identified by Department of Justice and the COPS office on early warning systems.
And then you localize it to the culture here. And
Absolutely.
Okay, terrific. Thank you very much. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
I know a number of questions have been asked with regard to the pathway to profession. When will it officially launch?
It already has. It's again, what this is really a community-based implementation. What we've done is that we've gone out to our community leaders. We'll continue to do that. We started with some of our pastors, again, speaking to them about this. And again, it's to plant that seed and ask our community's help to help with those individuals out in the community that they also believe would be great police officers, to help them have that pathway to the profession, to give them those opportunities in leadership roles, be it little league coaches or umpires, early on as they are developing into adulthood, and to start that early on in their life to make great decisions. And then that's part of us too, to say, you know what, we want you to think about joining our police department as you are going through this.
And what do you find is the biggest limitation to recruiting locally?
There's not
and
one
creating
thing.
that diversity.
I will tell you, it's not one thing. You've heard me say many times through the budget process is that, this year our numbers overall at the police department, just people applying, are down 25%. And I will tell you, it's not unusual just for our police department. You take any big city across the country, or probably most of them, there's, not a day that goes by that there's probably some article written about it, about other police departments that are having staffing crises, that, numbers are way down. And, I don't think it's just one thing. I think it's many things.
Referring to recommendation 14, the supervision and training, what was the outcome and feedback of the captain facilitated discussions? You list many questions that were posed, but not the responses or overarching themes. And while we don't want, I would assume that some of this is confidential, but what emerged that caught your attention that perhaps the department needs to work on, or that we need to better communicate with the public, or perhaps this body could assist with?
I think a lot of it was specific to the divisions and communications within the divisions about consistently supervising problem employees, consistently rewarding those that were demonstrating community-oriented policing and, the concepts of procedural justice well. And talking about how to more consistently, commend people, how to, provide narratives and evaluations that captured not just what was important globally in the organization, but the focus issues identified by each division that are all different dependent on the problems within the agency. But really what it brought to light was that there are a ton of mechanisms already available within the city. What needed to happen was the more intense communication between management teams in a forum like command training when they're all together for 40 hours. And then, of course, that can be reinforced through supervisors' meetings. But it has a lot to do with different supervisory styles. I mean, and I don't think that's different in any workplace. Mm-hmm. If you have a supervisor that, holds people accountable to a higher level, and on the shift are two others that don't, it creates problems. So I think it really allowed more for internal discussions within work teams about how they could be on the same page, specifically following the captain's spoken goals and directives, if that makes sense.
Yes.
So we got a lot of feedback, but it really, I think the value of it was not so much from changing the way we do things globally as it was for individual divisions to make revisions and to be more specific about what they need as a team in their own community with their own management team.
You bet. And you plan on continuing these kinds of discussions going forward?
Yeah, we're already working on the content for our command training, which will start shortly after summer. It's going to be based on a needs assessment that has already taken place. The captains are identifying the important issues and asking for reinforcement in those areas that, but they're really going to dictate and determine what it is that we serve up in the next command training.
Terrific. And I know that ongoing training and that sort of support does help employees feel as though they are valued and important, and becomes a great retention tool. And so good luck with that. I did want to call something out here. I've got lots of questions. I could go on, but I'm not going to do it because we have other business. But I did want to call the department out that the San Diego Police Department's Wellness Unit has received the National Wellness Award for Best Practices from the Destination Zero organization. There were 22 agencies considered for this nationwide award. And since the creation of the Wellness Unit in 2011, San Diego PD has provided officers with enhanced resources for their overall well-being. Destination Zero assists agencies across the country in improving the health and safety of law enforcement officers, and obviously also that sense of satisfaction in what they're doing each and every day in their profession. So congratulations, well done. And this is a very impressive report, and I know we'll come back for an annual with the next council and committee chair. Thank you, by the way, for the honor of representing, being on this committee and sharing all of this information with me. I've learned a great deal. I also want to acknowledge, I know I sent the chief a note while I was out, the performance of the San Diego Police Department during those anti-Trump rallies downtown. You all just did a marvelous job in keeping the peace and making sure that we didn't make national news the way many cities have made national news. You all did a great job. Your professionalism is striking, and congratulations on a job well done.
Thank you all very much. Thank you.
All righty. With that, let's go to our next item, summer in the city. This is our annual report on what you plan to do to keep the peace and make sure that everybody gets home safe and happy at the end of their visits to our beaches and bays. And if the two of you would please identify yourselves for the record, the floor is yours. I always look forward to this. And my big question with the staffing shortages that we still have, how you're able to cover the beach and also cover all of our other neighborhoods. And I guess that you kind of size that up when the time arrives if there are incidents that occur. But I hope that during your report you'll address that, and then I won't ask any more questions. So thanks. Go ahead.
Good afternoon. I'm Lieutenant Robert Don. I'm the Service Area Lieutenant for the beach communities at Northern Division.
And I'm Adam Sharkey. I'm a lieutenant at Northern Division, sitting in for Captain Hatton, who's on vacation.
Okay.
After last summer, I met with the town councils at La Jolla, Pacific Beach, and Mission Bay, or Mission Beach Town Council, and the response was overwhelmingly positive about the police response to last year's summer. In fact, Pacific Beach Town Council actually said it was the best summer they've seen in Pacific Beach, and I relate this directly to the officers and sergeants that were out there every day, making contact and doing a good job and working hard in the beach communities. And our goal this year is to be even better. A little bit of background. Vacationers from around the world visit San Diego's beaches and bays. The beaches drew nearly 9 million visitors from Memorial Day 2015 to Labor Day 2015. Specific numbers for last year on Memorial Day, nearly 280,000 folks visit us. On July 4th, nearly 500,000, and on Labor Day, 450,000. Last year, Mother Nature helped us out on Memorial Day, and the same with this year with the clouds and cooler weather, so that kept the crowds down a little bit. With those kind of crowds in the beach, the population for those areas, Northern Division sits at 97,000, Western Division at 15,000 in the beach communities. For the square mileage, Northern Division has the majority of that with 22.85 square miles, Western Division at 1.18 square miles. San Diego Police Department goals and objectives. The goal of the San Diego Police Department is to promote a peaceful and orderly environment for all persons who come to the beaches and bays, to facilitate the smooth flow of traffic and to solve problems rapidly and effectively. Police personnel enforce applicable state laws and city ordinances. Enforcement is designed to hold the offender accountable and to encourage compliance. Officers will be highly visible and are encouraged to take enforcement action to correct behavior on the first encounter. Officers always have discretion to warn offenders based upon the totality of the circumstances. Field staffing that became effective on May 7th, our shift change. For Northern Division, first watch, 14 is minimum staffing. We implemented the day beach team, which is 9 officers, 7 officers from different divisions, and then 2 officers from Northern Division. They work 10 to 2,000 hours. Of those 9 officers, 2 of those officers are directly operating our police boats on the weekends. A second watch, staffing at 16 for minimum staffing. The night beach team is staffed with 8 officers and 1 sergeant, and they work from 1,800 to 0400 hours. And the third watch, from 2,100 to 0700, with 13 officers as minimum staffing. And then Western Division has a walking/beach team staffed with 4 officers for the summer. Some of the things we did on Memorial Day and we'll do on Labor Day was add additional officers during the day to manage crowds and provide for public safety. Add additional officers at night to enhance public safety in the business districts around Garnett Avenue and Mission Boulevard. Having additional sworn and non-sworn personnel to assist with parking, traffic, and quality of life issues. And to use a mobile command post to enhance coordination between officers and allied agencies. 4th of July weekend. 4th of July falls on a Monday this year and is the largest event of the year for the city of San Diego. We will have enhanced staffing and coordination using the incident command system Friday evening through Monday evening. There will be 4 command posts in effect. Beach Command will be at Northern Division, and all teams working Northern Division for the 4th of July will have lineups at Beach Command. Belmont Park will have a command post, and that will be a joint command post between Fire Department and the Police Department. We will have a Reed Avenue command post, and then Ocean Beach will staff a command post. The mobile command post provides a centralized location to coordinate operations, and it also deters criminal presence by providing a visible police presence. The assignment on the 4th of July will be by geography. Over the 4th of July holiday, officers are assigned to different quadrants of the beaches to provide for a quicker response time and enhance public safety. As the officers get out there, we found that by having them in specific areas, they can't move once the crowds get in there, so we have to have them all in place at these different areas. Those will be Fiesta Island, Mission Bay, Ski Beach, Crown Point, Faneuil Parks, South Mission to North Pacific Beach beaches, La Jolla Shores, La Jolla Cove, Windansea, Sea Lane, and Marine Street beaches, and Ocean Beach. Northern Division will have an additional 5 beach teams working on the 4th of July, so a total of 8 teams will be out on the 4th of July along with our normal patrol staffing. Western Division will have 5 teams out there in Western Division on the 4th of July. The resources utilized will be patrol cruisers, police utility vehicles, 4x4s, transport vans. We'll be out on ATVs, bicycles, including rhinos, quads, the patrol bikes, and of course we'll have our 2 police patrol boats out in the bay on all holiday weekends and any weekend that is anticipated to be extremely busy or hot. Observation resources that are available. We have the Terrahawk mobile observation platform, which we can move anywhere in the beach that we deem necessary. We have the SDPD air support unit, which has downlinking capability that can downlink anything we need to the mobile command posts. Specialized units that will be assisting us over the 4th of July weekend will be the Critical Incident Management Unit, Gang Unit, Vice Investigations, Traffic Division, Special Events Traffic Controllers, Parking Controllers, Senior Volunteer Patrols, and Cadets. Our public safety partners that we've been working with for the summer, lifeguards, San Diego Fire Department, Parks and Recreation, City Attorney's Office, neighborhood prosecutors, Fire Marshal, U.S. Coast Guard, San Diego Regional Dive Team, and Alcohol Beverage Control. The education and outreach started before Memorial Day with Captain Hanton doing press conferences along with the Lifeguard Service and Fire Department on beach information, beach rules, and we wanted to get the message out early, and that's going to be our plan over the 4th of July too, is to work with our media relations to get social media blasts out and make sure that we get all the rules and regulations out for the beach communities. One of the major complaints that I received from the community last year, of all things, was tents on the beach, and that's one of the things we've emphasized in our outreach this time, is making sure that everybody knows the rules, and we have displays of what tents are not allowed and which tents are allowed. So that information is going to be through press conferences and then through media blasts, the beach rules. In conclusion, the San Diego Police Department's multidisciplinary and cooperative approach has proven successful in providing a safe and enjoyable environment for everyone who comes to the beach and bay communities. It worked really well last year, and we're hoping for the same results in a good summer this year. Are there any questions?
Just mine about how do you cover the other neighborhoods when you concentrate forces along the beach?
The other neighborhoods are still staffed by our patrol officers.
You're not pulling them out of other divisions or areas?
We got 1 officer from 7 divisions, so that's 7 officers on our summer beach team come from other divisions, and then 2 of those officers are from our division.
Okay, but you're mobile enough if something happens, you'd be able to respond to it?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, that was the only question I had. Mr. Gloria?
You and I are on the same page. I had the same question. So and then that's enough to do what you need to do on the beach, pulling 1 from each section plus the 2 sounds like that's probably overtime or something, because there are 2 additional from your own area.
No, they're actually, those are our 2 boat operators, so that's a collateral duty, so they're actually assigned to the summer beach team during the summer shift.
So that's enough. So it's a relatively minor reduction in the other areas. You know, we Chief and I are talking about how a busy summer we have, and we didn't talk about the beach. It's not surprising in my council district, right? But we're talking about Comic-Con, All-Star Game, Pride, all these other things. So how do you do it? I mean, maybe that's more rhetorical, but it's you know, I'm noticing the dates that you're talking about, and there's a couple other things going on in the world at the same time.
Yeah, we appreciate that question. And, you know, when we have major events in our city, such as the 4th of July every year, or we talk about Comic-Con, you know, Pride Festival, certainly we're all looking forward to the All-Star Game. That's a great message that we want to make sure that we send to all of our communities, because we are going to make sure that all of our communities are safe. We are not diminishing our resources to our patrol staffing to do this. We are doing this with either existing personnel, as you said, we take one additional person from each of the divisions to make up a second beach team to make sure that we can have 7-day-a-week coverage to, you know, for the beaches, because we know that that's a destination. And certainly on July 4th, we're going to have additional people that are there. But on any given day, we move resources around. You've heard us talk about that too. If there's happens to be a major crime in one area of the city, we are going to move resources into that area to either address that or to prevent maybe a potential retaliation from somewhere else. So we do move our resources around, you know, all the time. We take a look at what we do.
Well, and it sounds like you did a great job last year, or that the efforts were well received. No, this is the same as last year. No changes.
Yeah, the only change is we got 1 additional person for our summer beach team.
And so that's in no additional. From a cash perspective, it costs about the same too, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Well, good stuff, and I appreciate hearing you go out to those communities and that it was well received and you got that feedback. It sounds like it was well deserved, and thanks for what you do. Thank you.
And then also, if you want to get information to our offices, we can put them up on our Facebook, so we can talk to the communities about before they go to the beach, what they need to know, and making sure they're prepared. All right. Thank you so much. Anything else you'd like to add? Thank you, and have a great summer.
Thank you.